Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the Mitsu Times podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Josh with Mitsu Times. Today our special guest is Chris and Nick Behnken of Revenge Performance. How's it going, guys? How are y'all today?
Hey, we're doing great. Thank you. Looking forward to the spring weather.
Absolutely. It can't get warm fast enough for me.
I know. We keep getting, basically toyed with. It'll be 40 degrees one day and 70 the next.
Yep, that's exactly how we've been up here. All right, so let's talk about the beginning of Revenge. How did it start and why did it start?
Well, basically, like a lot of people, it was sort of a side hustle at first. We were legally incorporated in 2018. I had a job. I was actually the vice president and CTO of a small website company in town. And so my background, including Nick's background, is actually in IT and software development. Basically I had a stealth for a long, long time. I think this may tie into kind of a little bit further talk down the line. But basically 2018 is when we started. And we started to provide drivetrain services for 3000 GT owners, because there's just not a lot of shops out there capable of doing that. And it's not that anything that's, space age about rebuilding one of these drivetrains, but they do have their own quirks. They have their own weaknesses that need to be addressed. And the parts availability has never been great because Getrag never officially sold parts for these units through Mitsubishi as part of their agreement to build the transaxles for Mitsubishi. And so they've always been really hard to get parts. And so we've worked really hard to acquire both OEM parts and also have new parts made, like the carbon synchronizers that we've had for years now. And we're working really hard to get other things made, like replacement gears that are just obsolete and completely unavailable.
So you started doing the transmissions yourself, and then it led you to doing it for other people?
Yeah, exactly. I actually rebuilt a spare transmission, and it was a 6-speed 3000 GT all-wheel drive transmission. And I needed a spare just because, I like to race the car, and I wanted to make sure we had something ready to go. I think I came across a great deal. Somebody was selling a core pretty cheap. And so I went through it, rebuilt it, kind of had it on the shelf. And then someone was looking for a transmission, and through the grapevine, they kind of heard that I did them. And he ended up buying it. And so he was kind of our very first, kind of pre-customer.
Okay.
I think we sold that to him in 2016. He's actually still driving on that transmission, by the way. So
Nice.
That's been doing good for him. And he's also bought, a lot of other stuff from us since then. And so he's been a great friend. So I guess, as soon as somebody bought one from me, I was kind of more and more inclined to start helping people out with that.
So you're mostly known for the transmission rebuilds, but what other products, I think a lot of people need to go to your website and really see. Can you give us like a rundown of the products and you offer for the 3S platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is currently expanding a lot. We're trying to cover a lot of different platforms out there. We're trying to bring in a lot of different products. Currently, we have 240,000 SKUs on the website, and they all also have real-time inventory. Obviously, we're not literally stocking 240,000 SKUs. Probably almost no one really is. We do stock a lot, but a lot of these parts we actually get from bigger warehouse and distribution centers. And so on the website, it says, there's 4 or 5 of these things. Those actually do exist and are available for shipment. With the COVID-19 affecting the supply chain so much, it's really critical to work with a company that will give you a straight answer on the actual inventory on items. Because if you go somewhere and it just says in stock, that's a little bit suspect. When it says, 6 in stock, that makes me feel a whole lot better when I'm seeing that. As far as the 3S goes, we offer full, complete drivetrain services for them. So if you need a clutch, you need a flywheel, you need your transmission rebuilt, 5-speed, 6-speed, we do them both. We also do the transfer cases, and that's getting more and more important because a few years ago, Mitsubishi eliminated the capability for them to do the recalls on those transfer cases. In the early 2000s, there was actually a recall on that transfer case because when they leak, it actually will lock up all 4 wheels if you let it go long enough. And so it was a National Highway Transportation Board safety issue. If you have any leaks on your transfer cases, or your transmissions, handle them right away. At least keep it topped up, but I would definitely, reach out to us if you have a leak. We offer gear treatments on them. If you want to do REM treatment or isotropic treatments on them, we can do that. We can do WPC treatment. We can do custom breather setups. If you at really high speeds, the 6-speed transfer case can actually eject some fluid, and so does the 5-speed. And so we do build some remote breathers for those. And we also offer billet transfer case housings for the 5-speed. So you can place entire housing, front and mid housing of the transfer cases with a 775 aluminum piece that will not break under drag race conditions like the stock one will.
Wow.
We also do the rear ends, which is another overlooked component. I can't tell you how many of these we get in that have 2 or 3 times the backlash that's specified. And so what that'll do is that'll cause a lot of clunking. It can develop a whine. You can actually break your transfer case by having a loose rear end because it's a lot like stored energy. It just twists up and springs, and when it hits that backlash, you're kind of really stressing out the transfer case. And so you look at some folks and they break a lot of transfer cases, but then some folks don't. And I think the difference is some of the rear ends are tighter. Kind of famously, Trevor raced a 96 red Stealth, and he ran 10s, long time, bunch of passes, never tore up a 6-speed transfer case. And then you get folks, running 12s that break them. I think it was because his car was like brand new when he got it, and so his rear end was well taken care of and didn't have a lot of backlash. So I highly recommend it, and it's really not surprising how many people just send all 3 components to us. We do them fully rebuilt. We send them back on a pallet. You can install all 3 of those yourself. You don't have to worry about it. We even try to keep some cores around here so that we can rebuild units without kind of any downtime on your part if you want to do that. Or if you're wanting to switch over to a 6-speed from a 5 or vice versa, you can do that too. And we try to keep some of that stuff in stock. The other thing we offer is a lot of basic engine parts, race timing belts, fuel injectors, tuning solutions like the AEM, EMS, Haltech, MAFT, traditional stuff like that, fuel pumps, just really anything. We do have partnership with Cherry Hill Mitsubishi, so we can provide any OEM parts that you need as well, often for less than you can get directly from them, and with free shipping. I think that's one of the nice things about our website too, is if you order over $100, non-freight deliveries are free, and so I think that helps out too. We don't try to make any money on shipping. Nick actually got me into this car. He had a 95 non-turbo RT in like 2001.
Yeah.
Right? So that was long time ago, and he had, of course, like everybody, he had lifter tech, right? And so like the first thing I did to one of these cars was replace the lifters. And so, for somebody that's never touched one before, that's a little bit involved. You got to get the plenum off, which is scary if you've never seen one, valve covers, all that good stuff. And, we're prying out rocker arms with screwdrivers and stuff. I mean, just the way that anybody in their garage will learn how to do it. And Team 3S, the website out there that used to have like timing belt guides and all kinds of stuff like that really helped us out. So, pretty much anything you need for a 3000 GT or Stealth, we can give you good advice on what you need. We don't sell people what they don't need. We can tell you what works for us. And I mean, that's why we keep a shop car here. I mean, I could buy a different car. I could work on my truck. I could do whatever, but I can keep a 95 Stealth Turbo here. So, pretty much everything we sell, we have actually tried out on this car. We have GSC no-tick lifters that we've kind of adapted from the 4G63, and we run those on our car, and they don't tick. And they're, a lot cheaper than OEM 99 lifters. And so we just try to address, kind of any shortcomings that people have with the cars. Try to make them go fast. I mean, I know we'll probably get into that a little bit later. We talk about racing. But if you want to go fast or you just want to keep your car stock, we kind of do, A to Z on that. We just rebuilt a 5-speed the other day that was date stamped 1989.
Jeez.
And so, yeah, I mean, the cars did not come to market until 91, but, that means the car was made in, April, May, June of 90. And so Getrag had to get transmissions to them. And so the date code on this transmission was 1989.
Wow.
So And by the time we were done, that thing was set up better than it was when it was new. And I mean, it was something anybody could be proud to own. So, I mean, I hope that kind of covers your question. That's sort of what we offer for these cars.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, good.
The thing I love about these cars is how indestructible they were compared to some of today's cars even. I mean, I just got black stealth at RT and redlined it every stop
Every time.
every day.
Every time.
Never gave me problems.
I mean, he did.
And 8,500 a couple.
I think you had 128,000 miles on that car when you sold it to me.
Yeah.
And I think I put another 60 or so on it. Yeah. And I think we checked the rod bearings at like 160, and they looked fine. And we can talk about that a little bit later too. But if you take decent care of them, you can just beat on these things. These engines could have been put in a bulldozer. I mean, they can just rev all day. They don't blow up like that. They got a short stroke, so they love to rev. I mean, on top of that, it's just a great-looking car.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And you know, I think that's why we focus on the 3S platform. I mean, if they were ugly, would there be any love?
Probably not.
I mean, but I mean, in the 90s, I mean, could you imagine seeing one of these things in 91? You'd be like, is that a Ferrari?
Right.
You know, going by, and it's a Mitsubishi. I mean, it's something that a guy with a normal job, you know, if he really rubbed his fingers together, he could go buy one, you know. And not that you could buy a Ferrari 348 probably, but
right.
I remember when I was 16, I went with Dad. He's like, what is this car? The speedometer goes to 160. Everything else into like 85 at the time. I'm like, I want one of those. Dad's like, you'll never be able to get one of those. It was my goal. I could get one, and I got one.
That's awesome.
Well, I don't know if that tells you anything about the Behnken boys and the white ones too. But just because we can't do something, it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's just more motivation.
Yeah, but these cars are just beautiful. You get all your naysayers about they're heavy and all that. And then look at modern cars. A new GTR weighs more than the 3S does.
Yeah.
The new Camaros weigh about the same. I mean, if you want to keep using the weight as an excuse why you're slow, then okay, fine. But it's not relative to cars today. They're made tough. I'd take it over a 2,000-pound car from the 90s any day of the week because they're going to be here in another 20, 30 years, and they're not going to creak and groan and moan. And they're just built great. I mean, they were comfortable. I mean, we do the drag and drive events, and yeah, there's tons of better cars probably, objectively better, okay? But subjectively, you can hop in the thing, you can drive for 10 hours, go to the track, unload your stuff, go run a 10-second pass, not even change your tires, not even check your tire air pressure. I mean, I really ran at 10.9 off the street, spare tire in the front. I mean, just doing no changes from actual street driving, and to me, that's kind of what I want. I mean, I have mad respect for the people that switch over from street to race mode and go out there and run 8s and 7s and things like that. But it's just really cool to me. I can literally roll up to the staging lanes from the street and run a 10.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we did. You and I drove a Rocky Mountain Raceway, full air conditioning, all of our luggage in the back, and weighing 4,100 pounds.
Yeah, with our junk. Yeah, we had junk in the trunk still. We got on scales with me in it, and I'm not a light guy. It was like 4,100. So even the race weight with me driving is probably still 3,800 because we had a bunch of luggage in there. But
right.
It's just really cool, and I mean
you drove it to the track and you drove it home.
Yeah, no, I mean literally, we just at Tulsa last year we ran at 1090 exact street trim, and then we're like, well, we had a good day, let's pack up and watch everybody else race, and it was just a great day. I could have went faster probably, yeah, but I mean it was just a good day. We had air conditioning, we can last year when we ran like an 11.2, we had leather seats and all that stuff. I mean, it was stock on the inside. It's a cool car to do that stuff with, to me at least. And like I said, probably you get a 2020 Camaro, it's probably even better, great. But I think for a car that was built 30, 35 years ago or whatever nowadays, that's just amazing. And it's to me, it's a shame that Mitsubishi just doesn't build stuff with the soul like this had.
Yeah,
and like the things had. So, but they did. They kind of caught lightning in a bottle, in my opinion. And I think it's just a really undervalued car.
I do too. And this market with all the used cars going up so high, it's good to see that the 3000 GT, especially the RTTTs and the VR4s, are really getting the appreciation that they deserved all these years.
Yeah, I think there was like a 99 that had a couple hundred miles on it, just sold for over $100,000 the other day.
That's awesome.
So, and there's not a lot of them in that kind of condition. I get it. And I don't think my 100,000-mile drag car is ever going to sell for anything like that. But it is really nice, and I hope somebody paid enough for that they're going to take museum-type care of it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I think cars usually should be driven, but, I mean, if I had a 99 VR4 with 300 miles on it, it would get museumed. Yeah.
I'd put it in my living room and look at it every day.
Yeah, just go out there and polish it just occasionally. Don't rub the paint through, you know. just careful. Get a baby diver or something, right?
That's right. So what products do you guys hope to bring in the future? I seen a conversation on Facebook a couple of days ago. Someone was looking to build an all-out drag car, and they wanted the all-wheel drive auto, I guess that was available in Japan, and you guys were tagged in it, and I thought I would ask you about that because I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, actually we shot a video about that today. I got to do some editing to it, but all the cars abroad, and I'm probably wrong, but basically the ones in Japan and Europe and things like that, they were all-wheel drive, whether or not they were turbo or not. And so the non-turbo cars were also available with an automatic. And so I'm sure that Mitsubishi was not convinced that the automatic that they had could handle the 320 horsepower and torque that the twin turbo versions had. And so basically they had an all-wheel drive automatic that is identical internally to an Eclipse's transmission or DSM's transmission.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, and so the only difference, literally the only difference, is the bell housing is set up for the V6. So if you can acquire one of these, and I've been working really hard, I think I got 5 now, for backups for the shop car, but also because if somebody wants to build one of these someday, I don't want to see them getting junked because, you know, their current value is not a lot.
Right.
And we want to be able to build them. If you can acquire one, do some basic beef-up parts to it, it's great transmission. You can put a shift kit in it and run 12s. I mean, it really would not take a whole lot to beef it up for some moderate use. But the great thing is, you know, the Eclipse people, DSM people, they've been hardcore drag racers since day one. And so they have found every weak link in this transmission, and they've fixed almost all of them. You can get, you know, billet front clutches for third gear. We have that going into this transmission. You can get a 300M input shaft. We have that going into this transmission. You can get upgraded frictions for the rest of the transmission, shift kits. You can get techniques on how to raise the line pressure and things to the max and things like that. You get billet high stall torque converters and precision converter. There's just tons of aftermarket for that. I mean, it's never going to be, you know, a turbo 400 transmission from a domestic, but it's really a stout unit, and they don't need a ton to run decently. But if you start beefing them up, I mean, Aaron Gregory's running like 7.0 in the 190s with his. Yeah. And, you know, I'm sure that's a light car, no doubt. And I'm sure your results are going to vary, and it takes a ton of effort to run that kind of speed. I don't care what platform you have. I'm sure that guy's just put thousands of hours into that and a lot of money and heartache getting that to do that. So I don't want to belittle his contributions to that. But I'm saying a lot of it's been figured out. And so we've built one for the shop car. We've ran it for a year. You know, we were not, you know, setting any records on fire last year. Like I said, we ran it at 1090 at like 23 pounds of boost. It wasn't even getting pushed at all. And we just tore it down today, and it looks fine. Like the clutches aren't even worn out in it. The drums are fine. All the planetary gears look great. We're putting the old clutches back in. I mean, so it's really, it's a good unit. And everything the DSM guys have learned for the last 20 years, you can apply to this transmission. So I love a manual, absolutely. But with a torque converter, you can really spool some big turbos, and the lag pretty much goes away. We have a 4,000 stall converter in the car, the shop car, last year, and we had GTX 3071s twins on it, which is like a 54 millimeter turbo. And as soon as you gave it any mile throttle, it'd stall up to 4,000, make a little torque, and go straight to 6, and then you'd just be taking off. So we went to a bigger turbo this year because I'm like, power below 6,000 doesn't even matter anymore. You know, let's go a lot faster. And if you had a stick, it might be annoying. You know what I mean? because you'd always be downshifting. You'd
Right.
always be just ringing out. But with the auto and the torque converter, it just doesn't matter anymore. And so if somebody needs advice on those transmissions, there's some people out there that have a ton more experience than we do rebuilding them, but we can help you out with some of the things specific to the 6G72 platform. There's some other considerations like flex plates and pilot bearings and stuff like that that you need to watch out for that we've already kind of gone through. And so I think we can help with that. And, our overall transmission experience is really solid. So knowing a little bit about these units, we can kind of help anybody else out try to rebuild them themselves as well.
I think going back to your high stall torque converter,
Yes.
it does not make the car not streetable. You can still drive around town just fine, which is a common misconception. I had that misconception. Like, how can you drive around town? But
no,
you can still drive on it just fine.
No, I think some folks think that, I'm really glad you brought that up, because some folks think that if you're at a light, the car just isn't going to move until like 4,000. It's like, no, if you go 20-30% throttle, it just drives like normal.
Yeah.
Like, it'll stall to like 1,500 and take off. I mean, it's not nearly as loose as people think. It's just once the engine starts making a lot of boost and a lot of torque is when it kind of loosens up and starts to take off, which is exactly what you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we drove it 1,200 miles. I didn't have any problems. The fluid's not burnt. We didn't have a super exotic transmission cooler or anything like that. If you do get a precision converter, we can help you spec that out with them. And I will give you, as much info about ours as you want. We're not a shop that really has any secrets, so I don't like doing things that way. If you choose us for stuff, fantastic. If you don't, that's great too. We just want people to be successful in whatever they're trying to do. But you probably should get a converter with a sprag. They make these spragless converters, and they tend to run pretty hot. And so if you're going to do any street driving, I would highly recommend getting a sprag. And just be aware that if you try to do like ridiculous burnouts with them, you can tear the sprag up. But we have not had any problems with it. And Precision, pretty much says as long as you're not doing huge four-wheel drive burnouts, you're not really going to have a problem. Because they kind of get damaged when you let off the gas after a huge burnout is what they're telling us. So we run a sprag in ours, and it doesn't overheat or anything. We have 7% over transfer gears, and so I think it's doing like 3,075, so it's not like incredibly high RPM or anything either. So it's really working well.
That's so amazing. I did not know that that transmission in the DSM auto was so similar.
No, the only thing different is the bolt pattern on the bell housing. And so that's why it is important to acquire one, because the DSM one just won't bolt up to the engine.
Yeah.
Bell housing pattern's a lot wider on a 6G.
So is there any other products or services that you guys plan to, launch in the future?
For the 3S, we're working to get some more gears made. Some of the gears just don't exist anymore, like second gear for the 5-speed. There may be some kind of hidden away in places and things like that in private possessions and things. Yeah, but you can't really buy them anymore. And so if we get a transmission here with a second gear in too bad a shape, we have some issues trying to find some or go through some parts units and things. So we got a sample gear sent off to a company that has already produced 6-speed reverse gears for us and for Dave Manella. And so we are trying to get that second made. And we're just having to keep getting parts like that made. And we got shims made that you couldn't get before. We had a lot of influence in getting the carbon synchronizers made. Those didn't exist. We're currently working to get a 5th gear synchronizer made for the 5-speed because that's been discontinued for about a year. And so we're going to keep trying to offer parts, keep these transmissions working. I feel like the engines are pretty well taken care of. Shops like Pampina Racing and Merkel Race Engines do a really good job with that thing. Ryan Crowler still makes billet cranks for us, and a lot of things like that. So I think that's pretty taken care of. But kind of the biggest thing we're going to end up offering is more and more parts for other platforms. We're never going to get away from the 3000 GTs and the Stealths, but in order to keep doing that sort of stuff, we have to sell parts for other platforms,
right,
and that's just a fact. So we're bringing the products into the site, like I said earlier, with real-time inventory, so you can see exactly what we have ready to ship. But we're doing some major changes to the site, too. Basically improving the search to the point where if you have a 97 F-150, you can actually find exactly what you need for it. Whereas right now, you kind of need to know the part number. And so that's kind of the biggest thing. We always want to offer, our free shipping over $100. We want to offer personalized customer service. You can actually talk to somebody that cares and follows up on your order, and just a company that's really honest with you about timelines and availabilities, and try to keep competitive pricing. I mean, almost all the products on our site are priced as low as the manufacturers will even allow us to do.
We've gotten in trouble sometimes for selling too cheap on it.
Yeah, occasionally our inventory doesn't update, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is $5 too low," or whatever, and so we put it back. It's not like we're trying to cheat anybody, but I want to be a major parts distributor for a lot of platforms out there, and I don't know that we'll ever be as big as Summit Racing or something like that, but I want to be a pretty big parts distributor out there.
Yeah.
I think that our IT background gives us a unique ability to keep trying to make a better and better website. And so I want to make it easy to find what you need, easy to talk to somebody if you need to, and, show as much detail on these products as we can. And that's also why we're doing, trying to really put out a YouTube video once a week, is showing new products, showing how to do things. We just recently showed how to tear down an input shaft for a 6-speed transmission. And, some people might be like, why are you doing that? That's kind of like your trade secret. And it's like, I really think that if somebody's determined to rebuild their transmission, then they're probably going to do it. And so I want to make sure they do it right. And if they happen to get the parts to rebuild it from us, fantastic. If not, people helped us get where we're at. I want to help everybody else get where they need to go. And so I think I mentioned it. We're just not a company that tries to hide anything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If we have a failure on something, I'll be like, this is what went wrong. This is why. You got to be careful because people jump to conclusions, but it's just like, tell people honestly what went wrong. If a part isn't doing it, then fine. I mean, we ran our coil kit on our car for our coil and plug kit for 3000 DT. We ran for a year before we even released it, because I wanted to make sure you could drive the thing for 8 hours and not overheat the coils. And I wanted to make sure they fit and that people could do it. And just want to keep testing things. And so I had a question the other day. It was like, you built this big 5-speed transmission. Why didn't you put a bell housing brace in it? I mean, it's not that we don't. It's not that we can't. But for what the customer needed at the time, we didn't feel it was necessary, and we recommended they didn't go with one, and that's what they did. So we could have made more money doing it for them. But I just don't want to sell them, a $300 brace that they don't need.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the business model I'm trying to do. I mean, that's how we did websites when I worked at the website company too. We just tried to present a solution that was going to work, and if the client wanted to do something different too, that's fine.
The goal is we have to keep these cars on the road as long as we can.
Yeah.
Being honest is the way to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and with new manufacturing techniques, I mean, I think we can keep them on the road forever, because it's still expensive, but it gets easier all the time to make small batches of things. And I think Jay Leno has this huge collection of cars, and he's got these really old cars and Duesenbergs and steam cars and things like that. People are like, well, what do you do when you need a seal or something like that doesn't exist? And he's like, cars just made out of rubber and leather and metal and plastic, and everything can be remade. And so I don't want anybody to lose hope for these cars that they're not going to be capable of keeping on the road.
Yeah.
We try to find alternate solutions that get rid of the factory parts. Like we just switched brake kit to Willwood because I want to get rid of anything related to Mitsubishi brakes, just because they may not be available in the future.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's kind of where I try to steer people. I mean, I'm perfectly happy if you keep your car as stock as possible, but I also try to say, this part is getting really hard to get, but if you use this, that's a commodity. Willwood brake caliper, we'll buy those in 100 years. I mean, It's going to be there.
That's true. That's something that I guess I hadn't thought of before was, something as simple as brake pads. Maybe you won't be able to even get them at all in the future.
Right. I mean, you cannot buy reman second-gen rear calipers for these cars anymore, and it's been that way for years. And so, we're working with the same people, Anti-Lag Racing, to put together a rear brake kit for the 2G with Willwood components, because if your caliper gets scored up badly enough, it can't be rebuilt. What are you going to do?
Right.
You're not going to have brakes. And so you got off-the-shelf Willwood race parts with the correct adapters. Most of the specific platform adapters are never going to wear out because it's just a piece of billet aluminum. And so you're always going to be able to service your brakes.
So I think we covered why you focus on the 3S platform, or not focus, I guess is the right word, but continue to produce parts. I guess the R&D is the part that's the most important to keeping these cars on the road for you guys.
Right.
So what about your shop car that, you guys took on Rocky Mountain Race Week? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we've done Rocky Mountain Race Week for 2 years, and we are actually, hopefully I'm not spilling any beans, but we're sponsored this year, Rocky Mountain Race Week, and so I'll let them tell you more about that when they're ready to release that. But we are going to go this year, and so this will be the third year. In fact, I think we've made every 2.0 event because they started in 2020. In 2020, we ran with a 6-speed, and obviously it was an event-built 6-speed. By the last day, we got down to 11.2 at 127 something, and that was really a relatively low boost still too. That was like 25 pounds, and we drove the car home. I mean, we drove it out to Oklahoma City from Missouri. It was about 9 hours out there. We raced it for a week, went all over the country, drove all the way back home, and so in total we put 2,500 miles on that car. We ran 25 passes, 30 passes. And, I mean, there was 15 of them in the mid to low 11s. I mean, we just did a lot of passes on it, and we didn't have any problems. Nothing. Like, I could have taken the hood shut, and we had no problems. We changed nothing from street to race, and we just had a great time. We had working AC. We were just driving around having a good time. So the next year, I wanted to try this auto thing out because we were going to do more drag racing. And I believe, you can run as fast as you want to with a stick, sure. It's just I don't have the time to go to the track every week and really get your times down. And so with the auto, it's more like you keep refining your setup and you keep getting quicker and more consistent. And so for me, it was just a little bit easier solution to try to run the speeds that we want to. So we had GTX 3071s on there, running an old dynamic racing header kit that we had done a little bit of work to and put the new GTX Series 2 turbos on, and they were not close to tapped out. But kind of after running the auto, the year after that, we ran our 1090 relatively easily at a very low boost. We did realize that with the torque converter, we could go bigger on the turbos and really not give anything up. So now the car has GTX 3576s, which is a pretty significantly bigger turbo. And we've kind of done the math on that. If, stars align and we push it to 40 pounds of boost and everything's working well, it should make almost 1,000 of the wheels. And so, which is going to be good for some pretty good times if we can put it down. But really all we're hoping to do this year is run some kind of 9 on street tires.
Okay.
And so we want to drive the Rocky Mountain event. By the end of the week at least, run a 9 of any kind. If we can run a 9.5 or something like that, that'd be great. But I'm not even wanting to change the slicks right now. We're running a Toyo R88R, it's more like a road race radial than a drag radial, but it's pretty good for drag racing too. It's been working pretty well for us, really sticky. And so that's kind of the goals with that. And we want to come back home, not have it, messed up, and just show that you can do these things. You can get out and race. Everybody's so friendly. We get so many good comments on the car. I think there's this stigma on the internet that if you go drag racing with the 3000 GT, that people are going to give you a hard time or make fun of you. And they really don't in real life. So I wish people, at least no place I've ever been, and maybe that's just because I'm in the Midwest and, typically people are extra friendly in some of the Midwestern states. Maybe that's it, but they all love to see it. They love to see these cars on the road. They love to see them racing and getting out there and doing things. And, that's kind of what we're wanting to do. It's currently got the same engine we had last year, but Ray Pampina is putting together a billet crank engine for us, just because, if we're going to make 1,000, I think it's going to be a little hard on this engine. We right now have a 7.4, 7.2 stroker hybrid engine that Ray built for us back in 2013. And so it's also, they're both going to be about 3.4, 3.5 liters. But the next motor is going to have a stronger crank. And so I just want to, not throw the crank out of the thing during one of these race weeks and things like that. But really, other than that, it's nothing complicated. We're running 85. I've run 85 since like 2011, and it lets us run all the boost all the time. It really never comes down off of, 20, 23 PSI on the street. I don't think we put pump gas in a couple times. Yeah. Because we got a flex fuel tune on it, but we really don't run gas ever. And I ran for 10 years on all stock fuel lines and stuff. And Ray Pampino also proved that out. That stuff works fine. You can run the stock fuel filter. I mean, it's just a lot of myths around that too that aren't true. And so I guess not quite to the conclusion yet, but I like to try things out myself and see if they don't work first before I believe it.
Yeah.
The other thing, Chris, is, people come visit us this year at Rocky Mountain Race Week. We do have a roll cage in it, but that is required by racing. Chris, you want to explain that a little for people like me who haven't been racing before?
Yeah, sorry, I just grabbed a drink. Getting started in a car of this era, they want you to have a roll bar at least if you're running faster than 1150. And if you're with an 8-point cage, you can run down to actually the roll bar can run down to 10-0. Sorry, I'm talking about nonsense here, but you can run down to 10-0 with like a roll bar, and you can go down to 850 with a roll cage. And so we're going to upgrade our bar to a cage this year while we got it apart, in case we do end up going faster than 10-0. I want to be in compliance.
All right, so besides going 9s, is that the kind of final goal for the shop car? Or do you have bigger plans for it?
No, I mean, I don't think it's going to do it with the weight and the tires we have now, but I want to run 8s. I really do. And that's kind of what we're building it for, and then turning it back, to go run the 9s.
Yeah.
And be reliable and things like that. But I have a copy of the 67-2 time list from your list on my wall, and we really want to get to the top 5. I mean, I'm just not going to quit until we get above the top 5.
That's awesome. Kind of skipping out of line here. What do you think about when a 6G car will take back over the 3S list? When do you think that's going to happen?
I think if anybody's got a chance, it's going to be J-Rod.
Yeah.
I think he can do it. I think he wants to.
Yeah. He definitely seems like that's his motivation.
Yeah, he's got the experience with a Supra. I think he's working on Real Street, and they obviously got a lot of drag racing experience. So I don't know if it's going to happen this year. I mean, those guys obviously have been around the block a lot, but maybe it'll take them a little bit to kind of get it all figured out. But I hope somebody beats it, and not just to get a 6G back on the top of the list, but just because records are meant to be broken. Right. So let's see it happen.
Yeah, I would love to see a 6G back on top of the list. I think that would be so, because so many people now are putting the 4G in and not giving their 6G really a chance.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I don't have anything against the 4G 6.3 swaps, but I think it's one of those things that people think that it's a silver bullet fix for everything.
Yep.
And I really hate talking negatively about anybody. If you're struggling to make like 500 to the wheels with a 6G, then putting a 4G in the car isn't magically going to make all that go away. Yeah, I think for less money, they can probably make more power, definitely. You got one turbo, you got an inline engine, 5 main bearings. It's stronger than a V6. That's just a fact. But it just doesn't solve all the problems. I like the torque of 6G. I really do. Possibly I'm negating that by running pretty big turbos, but I just like the kind of spirit and the way the engine works. But the 4Gs are awesome. I don't know that anybody's ever going to run as fast as the 4G has by far. So it's a really, really great engine. I don't want people to swap to a 4G and then be disappointed and then be like, parting it out.
Right.
That's going to happen. That's going to happen a lot. One of the shout outs I was going to give out to was Eric Englert for developing that. I think that was a great thing. I know he's building another 4G car. I think that's going to be awesome. I think it's a great option. And if anything keeps these chassis on the road, that's great with me.
Definitely.
I just don't think it's a silver bullet solution for anything. It's just like even putting an LS in something. You can still blow them up. I mean, check it out. They definitely do. Are they more reliable than a 6G? Typically, I would say yes. But it doesn't fix everything.
Well, for me, it's part of that. For me, it's the nostalgia and the soul of the car.
Yeah,
the soul of the car is 6G7.2. I never even knew about that.
Yeah.
You can go faster with some other engines.
Yeah.
Engine swaps. But the soul of the car for me was that 6G7.2 spinning at 7,000 RPM. It was fun. It was exciting. It's what that was the car for me.
Right. Yeah, it's really cool. And
don't know what else to say about that. Like I said,
I get it. I get what
I 100% do. We could definitely build a 4G for less money, most likely, and provided we tried hard enough and got the right advice from people, I think we could probably go faster, definitely than we have so far. But I also don't think that people give the 6G enough credit. I mean, even in stock form, in good condition, it's fine to 550 or 600 wheel. And I mean, not a lot of 90s engines that could do that. I mean, maybe that's commonplace today. I just saw a Kia Stinger the other day make 600 on the stock turbos. So, I mean, that they really come a long way. But 600 wheel is not a dog.
Right.
I mean, I think people, for the most part, need to drive a car with 600 before they declare that, your car's a turd or something.
Yeah.
And I think the 6G, back in the day, they did have some bearing issues, and they still do today. But most of it today is just old age. I mean, you're looking at, if you get a car with 100,000 miles on it that's had 10 owners and 25 years, assume the engine's bad. I mean, I'm sorry, just do it. I don't care if it's got a 4G or a LS1 or a broad-body 350. I mean, it's on borrowed time. It's just the bottom line. So they have an oiling system that needs all the help it can get. And that's the biggest thing with the 6G. You don't see them breaking a ton of pistons, really. They don't fold up rods that easily in stock format. They don't have a lot of valve train problems. If you do the timing belt maintenance and things like that, they don't have a lot of valve problems. They do sometimes spin rod bearings, but it's almost always an oiling or a tune issue. If you have heavy detonation on any car, it's going to beat the bearings out of it. These just happen to have a lower threshold because the rod bearings are fairly small because of the V6 configuration they had to be. But most of them got dented oil pans. That's a big thing. If you have any ding in your oil pan at all, fix it. You take that oil pan off, get something round, pound it out. It's not that hard, just time, basically. Inspect your screen on your oil pump. The screen can get pushed in. And oil is pretty complicated science, and I don't claim to know fundamentally how it works, but even if you dent in a screen on an oil pickup, the strainer not being symmetrical anymore can cause cavitation. I mean, it just takes very little to mess that up. And so you'll start getting air bubbles in your rod bearings, basically, and they'll knock them right out. So you need to have oil pan in great shape, no excessive leaks, like your oil cooler all beat in or something leaking everywhere. If you got a car with 100,000 miles, inspect the bearings. I mean, that's just what you do. And replace them, rebuild it before it blows up, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. But, I mean, even the 1G engines could do 450 for a long time and not blow up. Kind of once you start moving past 600, I would say, 700, it's a good time to start looking at the billet crank options. I mean, 3SX back in the day made like $975 to the wheels with a 3.0 on stock crank. So it's not like it can't be done, but they do start to develop cracks. And so if you're really going to push things, get a billet crank in there. To me, I'd rather have a billet cranked and, blow up a handful of forged ones.
Yeah.
Just trying to get that done. But I think the other issue people might critique the engine on is it's kind of a little hard on head gaskets. In stock form, they're not. So if you get a stock one, they pretty much don't eat them up. If you run under like 500 and your tune's okay, they pretty much don't eat them up. You start turning it up too much, and there's a hollow area under the deck, under the fire ring, where that actually goes against the engine, and that can actually flex. And so, especially if you have detonation or you're running more timing than's necessary for peak torque, you can actually get some flex there. And so, Ray Pampina kind of pioneered a fix for that. So, talk to Ray on Facebook or Merkel Race Engines in Long Island, New York. Talk to them. They actually drill that out, put a solid stanchion in there and weld that into the deck. And at that point, people are with good head studs. We sell extreme studs on site. It's a really good head stud combination, and a lot better than this off-the-shelf ARPs, because ARPs, they actually neck the fastener down, and so they're really not any stronger in stock. But these are a full half-inch. And with good studs, a factory MLS gasket, and the headlift fix, you're good 700, 800, 900. If you got a good tune, you're not really going to have a lot of head gasket problems.
Don't be on it cold.
Well, yeah, some common sense like that, tear things up. And if it overheats, turn it off.
Right.
That sort of stuff you got to do with anything. But So it's just a couple of weak spots with that. I don't know if we got time to cover all the weak spots in the transmission, but there's a couple for sure. It's not as weak as people think. Unless you have a 91 or 92 with the 18 spline 5-speed, it's not fragile, I wouldn't say. But that's another thing that's getting to be 30 years old and needs gone through. If you have a transmission that's even starting to nip at you a little bit, give you a little bit grind when you go between the gears, reach out to us because it's so much cheaper to fix that before it tears the gears up. I mean, you may tear a gear up that is unattainable.
Yeah.
So just get that fixed before that's a problem.
Take that second gear out, you're not going to be driving again for a while, it sounds like.
No, or you'll be begging and borrowing, trying to find people's used transmissions and tear them down. I mean, sometimes I have to tear down 3 transmissions to get a couple good gears out of them. I mean, it takes a lot.
So besides the Stealth RT non-turbo, the black one that you guys were talking about earlier, what other cars have you guys had?
We have another black non-turbo out front, a 3000 GT that we picked up from one of our great customers, Anthony Dunning, that hasn't run for 9 years or so. And I'm not exactly sure what we'll do with it, but we're going to try to make it fast. So we'll see.
They do one of those YouTube videos, Will It Run?
Yeah. Well, we might do some videos and say, what killed this car? He doesn't know if it's a broken timing belt or a spun bearing.
No.
I think the old one put it in, so that might be a good video to show what not to get. The story goes that it was rebuilt and somebody jacked it up by the oil pan and ruined the engine right away, and then they were just done with it, So we had to power wash the mold off of it. We're going to have a video up about that pretty soon on our YouTube channel.
So if somebody out there, they're listening, they have a 6G72 powered car and they want to make a little bit more power out of it and still, keep it in one piece, what advice would you guys give them?
Don't read the internet that says you got to have 1,000 horsepower to have fun. Even stock, they're not turds or anything. I was thrilled when I got mine when it was new, not new, but when it was new to me. And with a boost controller, like a basic exhaust, any of the exhaust you can get for them, you can make 300 to the wheels, and it's a pretty quick car and plenty good to cruise down the interstate and have fun. Get to learn the engine, inspect it, do your 60K, your timing belt services, inspect the oil pump, inspect the oil pan, things like that, and just get a feel for it. We have same client, Anthony Dunning, that we got the black car from. He is upgrading his turbos now. So he had 9Bs, and he's had a lot of fun with it. But we're going to a little bitty turbo upgrade, 13Ts. And that's a good route for a lot of folks. You can pick up 100 horsepower with, no downsides. You just got to decide, do you want, huge power, or you just want to have a lot of fun and something that you're not going to have to worry about too much. If you get a chrome ECU, decent injectors, fuel pump, and a small turbo upgrade like 13Ts or 15Gs, you can be putting 400 to the wheels, which is, pretty quick car now. Even nowadays, it's still fun to drive.
Yeah.
And so just do that. See how you like it. Take them on a trip. They sit in the garage too much. Get on the road. Have fun with it. Engine management is way more important than people gave it credit. I think a lot of people are stuck in the SAFC piggyback tuning idea that kind of came about in the 90s and things like that. Before I even got bigger in turbos, I would put an AEM or a Haltech on a car, and I'm serious. Yeah, I know it's a lot of money. I know it's a lot of work, but you're going to learn so much about tuning. You're going to know your car intimately, how it runs. You're going to know when something's wrong. You're going to be able to tune it to do exactly what you want. You can tune flex fuel. You can run whatever fuel ratio you want cruising down that road. You don't have to worry about your stock ECU being some black box that you have no idea what it's doing. If I bought a car today, knowing what I know, having no parts that I had, I put a Haltech on it before I put an exhaust on it.
Wow.
I know that sounds crazy, but the new stuff in these ECUs will save your engine. I don't watch the gauges when I'm in a pull. It's going by too fast. You just can't. And so if you got a stock ECU, it doesn't care if you're running 15 to 1 at full throttle. It's just going to do it. And so any kind of issues, AM EMS Series 2 or the Haltech all got safety features where if you go too lean, you don't have enough oil pressure, you don't have enough fuel pressure, or your car gets too hot, all that stuff can be programmed in easily and protect your engine and save you thousands of dollars of damage.
Yeah.
And coming from a computer background, I like tinkering with it.
Yeah,
I really do.
You know what else? We just found out in my personal car, one bad tank of gas,
Yeah,
and you don't know what's going on. ECU can't do that part. You just toasted your engine.
exactly. You can program the Haltech, the light up your check engine light. You can do all kinds of that for the knock. If it detects your fuel's not very good, I ran piggybacks for 10 years. I get it. Totally I do. But really, save your money. Get your car run right on stock ECU so you're not giving too many variables at once, unless your ECU is just bad. You don't want to take a car that's like barely running and then throw a standalone ECU in. It's going to fix everything. It's still got to have good spark plugs and compression and valve sealing and all that.
It's not going to be a fix-all.
Time. Yeah, it's not going to fix that. But literally, the first part I would buy, besides motor oil, taking dents out of your oil pan, spark plugs, timing belt.
Check your ECU because there's a lot of those bad capacitors.
Yeah, the stock ECUs, they use electrolytic capacitors in the 90s, and they have certain shelf life. Not only time, but heat and things like that, and they leak out. I believe on Facebook, if you need an ECU fix, James Grieve is the guy to go to right now. And if you want to keep your car stock, great. But if you're wanting to make more power or better drivability, go with a standalone. I think that's another myth, too, is people think that you'll never get stock drivability. And it's not true, man. I think my car drives better than it did when it was stock. All these new ECUs have self-learning functions and wideband feedback. And, you can get to way better than they ever intended because, they have different desires that we have.
Right.
They wanted emissions to be perfect, and they wanted the fuel economy to be absolute maximum possible. And your drivability does suffer from that. And so you can have great fuel economy. You can still pass emissions. As far as like a sniffer test,
your emissions are going to be better because you can tune it more accurately to that line band.
Yeah, because they're going with 1991 narrowband sensors.
Right.
1 second until
we've gone so far in technology in that short amount of time.
Yeah, and we're really responsible. We love the environment. I'm an environmental guy. I have family that works in conservation. We're not going to be out there smoking anybody. We try to get things running perfectly and stoic and clean emissions and running cats and everything like that. So I'm not recommending against that. And if you're in, a locality where you just can't run an aftermarket ECU, I get that too. I do not want to get on a soapbox about it, but I do wish the tailpipe actual emissions was kind of the main thing, because if you can put a Haltech in a car and it produces less emissions than a stock ECU car, that should not be illegal, in my opinion. But again, I'm probably getting on the topic.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't like to be smoked by some cars. You just throwing soot everywhere. That's another topic for another time. But Chris tries to do everything responsible on tuning and encourages that.
Well, and it benefits everybody.
Yeah.
Who wants to ride around in a car and smell like you're on fire when you get out of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody in the back on the interstate, you smell it.
Smell it for a mile, yeah.
You smell unburned fuel just as they pull away.
Yeah, you could, especially if you. Oh God, I'm gonna get sued by GM. But if you look at a Malibu or something from the early 2000s and they floored on an on-ramp, you can sure tell.
So if somebody out there, they have a RT-TT or a VR4 and, they're at their wits end with the 6G or they're considering taking out the 6G, putting in the 4G because, they've seen other people do it. What advice would you give them or what would you say?
I think asking questions is great, but do as much research as you can. Eric Englert has got a website, 4G63mounts.com. I'm probably wrong about that, but it's something like that. It describes all the parts and things you need. He sells motor mounts that make it almost a bolt-in affair. He tells you what axles and things you need to get, the front axles to get it all to work. Figure all that out first, and then just make sure you're kind of up to it. I know everybody can do it. Believe me, I believe in people, and I believe everybody can learn how to do things. But it's not as easy as putting a 6G back in. Okay, it's going to be close, and it's going to be easy. But just read it, see what you can do, and then start asking questions. Get a good engine. It's still bad. It could still be bad. You could go pick up a 4G63 if you're just going to get one that is supposedly rebuilt or built or from Japan, whatever they do with their 60K stuff they claim. That could all be bad too. And so you want to verify if you're buying a core motor. I would prefer to get an Eclipse that runs that you're sure that the motor's good, and get one that's crashed. Okay, I don't want an Evo. That's a little bit different setup because they sit differently, but don't kill an Eclipse to do the swap if you can help it. Go find one that got T-bone real bad, but runs, goes through the gears and things like that. Because they got the same transmission problems that we tend to have, and the same engine problems a lot. So get one that runs good, because if you drop that thing in and it needs help, where'd you get? So
back to square one.
I don't consider anything any good anymore, especially used transmissions. I don't consider any of them any good. So I take apart everything that I buy. So if I did a 4G63 swap, first thing I'd do is be pulling the pan off, looking at the bearings. If you get one that's great, fantastic, they're strong. But who knows what you got? And so if you swap that whole thing in there, I don't want you to lose all the motivation you had to do the swap, because you fire it up and you got James Bond smoke screen, or it starts knocking like a woodpecker, or whatever problems you got with it. I guess overall too, be careful with your fuel systems. Cars can get burned down. And so be really careful, use high quality stuff. Don't use carburetor fuel lines and things like that. Just be real careful. I've seen a couple cars get burned down by owners that were really careful. And so it's just more important than ever when you're doing an engine swap like that. Route things away from heat, route things away from rotating parts. Just keep everything safe. Take the time to do it right. You can do a roadside repair with bubble gum and stuff like that, but if it's in your own garage or your house or parents or wherever it's at, take the time, do it right, get the right parts. That's not saying you got to buy everything. You can fabricate your own stuff too, but just be proud when you pop the hood that no matter whether it's a 4G or a 6G, you're like, hey, I want to show this off. Look what we did.
So besides the shop car goals, what other goals does Revenge have for 2022?
Well, mainly the goals are we want to get into other areas to sell parts and things like that. Like I said, we're trying to continue to develop parts for these cars, and we'll always do that. But to grow the company, we want to sell parts. I think a big area that we're going to be looking at is Jeep and truck accessories, just because it's so popular, and you don't have to worry about any emissions and things like that. If you put side steps on your Jeep, there's no, I guess there's lifting it too much or lowering it too much. There's laws against that and things like that. But typically you can do it. And, if you put a bumper on your truck, you don't have to worry about whether it's going to start and things like that. And so we just think that's really popular right now. We want to try some things. We just put a bumper on a Tundra the other day that was really nice. We want to get some information out there about. And just continue the same approach that we have with parts for these platforms, is sell stuff that works, sell stuff that fits.
Stuff that's proven, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We are currently working with integrated engineering on some VW and Audi parts, including tunes, exhaust pieces and components, intakes, stuff like that. So we're going to continue to branch out to that, mainly because Nick has an Audi, and so we can try some of these parts out on it and make sure they're good.
Okay. So besides the Rocky Mountain Race Week that we talked about, if someone wants to come out and see the shop car in action or talk to you guys face to face, where could they see you at?
Probably we're going to be down at the Sykeston Drag Strip. It's a little bit south of Cape Girardeau, which is about 100 miles south of St. Louis. It's a local 8th mile track. I did my very first drag racing down there. Oh gosh, it's probably been 15 years ago. And we're probably going to get the car down there and prove on it a little bit before we get out to Rocky Mountain Race Week this year. But it really depends a lot on our workload here. Right now, we're operating with about a 3-month lead time on our transmissions. And so we're kind of working around the clock to get these done and make sure that our customers are served the best. So we may not be able to do as many events as I would eventually like to. And, that's kind of also part of the parts sales and things like that. We want to be able to bring on additional staffing and things to reduce some lead times and stuff like that, and be able to spend more time on the shop car and other shop projects and go to more events and car shows and things in the St. Louis area. Up until about 7 p.m. every day, we're working on client stuff. And so if anybody's disappointed in how fast we're getting the shop car done, it's for a good cause.
That's good. All right, so finally, I always give people an opportunity to give a shout out to anybody that got them to where they are or has really been helping them out.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, our families, being able to put up with us to be able to do this business and take all the risk involved with anyone starting a business. My wife Jennifer obviously has been extremely supportive. and also has a great career. And so she allows me to do this and be able to not be terrified or anything that, we're not going to put food on the table and things like that. My brother Nick here has been working with us for several years. He does have another job too, so he's been putting a lot of extra hours in, helping us out, getting our servers up. Brent, for trusting in us and becoming involved in everything. I've known him for 35 years, basically since I was crawling around on the ground in kindergarten. I've known him. My brother Joel Behnken, he taught me how to work on cars. And so him and my father Wayne, if it wasn't for those two, I would not have known anything. When I was 15, I was changing clutches in a truck that I didn't have a license for yet. Yeah, and so, there's nothing wrong with it, but in our family, you kind of started out with nothing wherever you were in life. And so I had a 74 GMC truck. I guess I should have talked about that a little bit, that I did clutches and water pumps. And I mean, it's that for 20 years, my grandfather's. And we did auto swap in it too. And so I was doing that when I was like 17. So thanks to Joel and my father, Wayne, for giving me kind of the work ethic. He owned his own farm. And so basically you got things done. And it didn't matter how.
5, 6, 7, and midnight he'd work.
Yeah, he'd work. I remember he was working until 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve one night because he had to get the corn out. It was just one of those years where it rained when he tried to get it out and just had to keep working. So they've all been great. My mom's been very supportive. My mother and father-in-law, very supportive. They bought us stuff for the shop and encouraged us and stuff like that. I wanted to shout out to some 3S folks. Ray Pampino. That guy's a god when it comes to 6G engines. If you need one and you can talk to him, get a hold of him. He knows everything, every week's point about these engines and how he can build one hanging upside down. If you put him in that cave that's an Iron Man 1, he can build a 6G out of that stuff that's there. I mean, he just really can. He works with Merkle Racing, and they've been building the GM 3.8 liter V6s for 30 years, and so they know a lot about how to make V6s live. And so those guys are great. I want to thank Eric Englert. He's helped us personally at Rocky Mountain Race Week on more than one occasion. He's given us great advice, given us some tuning advice. Just been always a supportive person. He's doing a lot of great things with the platform. He's got a great YouTube channel. Love seeing that stuff out there. Frank Gaggy, he helps us out with some of the machining on some of our coil plug plates and things like that. And he also gives me some good advice on working with machines to do milling and things like that. James Merriman, been a great client for a long time. Everywhere you go, if anybody's looking for a transmission, he's popping his head up and recommending us, and I just really appreciate that. For a small business, that makes all the difference in the world. We've always tried to take care of him too. Jeff Davis, he's been a great transmission client, long time. He ran a 10.3 on one of our transmissions last year, and he's trying to eke into the 9s with the R750 bolt-on turbos. So that's really, really cool. J-Rod, obviously, I bought the car from him. So Jared sold us this car back in 2011 or 12, something like that. And so we drove to Oklahoma and got this car. So when we go race in Oklahoma, it's kind of going back home. And I'm missing tons of people, but one more guy I want to point out is Matt Monet. He's been great. He pioneered these T3 kits for these cars. I wish he still made them. He drag raced these cars. He's held the number 1 6G spot for a long, long time.
Yeah.
He was the first one in the 9s, the first one in the 8s, first one trapping like 160s. Just build solid parts, dudes, proved to himself. We're trying to do kind of what he did if we could hope to live up to that.
He's definitely the 6G whisperer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with his ARC 2 and his 5 knobs, he sure got down the track.
All right, well, Chris and Nick, I want to say, first off, thank you for sponsoring the website. The 6G72 list is definitely one of my favorites. I love to take a look at it every once in a while and see where everybody's at and see, make some predictions for the year. So big thank you for that.
You bet. I'm so glad to see a website like yours so well put together with so many different lists all at once. There's been different quick lists and things like that over the years, but I don't know if there's ever been one where you could just go look up any engine in any Mitsubishi related platform and thing like that. And it's just really cool. And we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today because, we don't get to talk to people one-on-one a whole lot. And so
Thank you for having us today.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure. And, I know you guys are busy guys, so thank you for taking the time and coming on the podcast. And, I can't wait for everybody to hear this and get a little bit of the knowledge that you shared with us today.
I hope it was useful. I don't know everything, but I try not to tell any lies.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it again, and we'll hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the Mitsu Times podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to mitsutimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.